BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me for 100 consecutive episodes, the man behind the curtain, the master behind the mic, Kyle JCRB Krause.
I am here. Hello. How's it going? Are you doing okay? Are you buckled in and ready for this freaking massive episode of craziness that we've got going on here?
I hope so, because when we were thinking of what to do for the big 100, it's like, well, what is the main draw of the show? Obviously, let's not kid ourselves. It's not my sparkling personality. It's not your stunning good looks. It's the Q&A.
Right.
And it's episode 100, so we got to make something big out of it. So let's do 100 questions. And you tried to warn me, Kyle. You really did. You're like, that's a lot of questions. I'm like, yeah, but it's special. Let's do it anyway. And you're like, not all of them are going to be the best questions. I'm like, it doesn't matter. We're going to do them all. And then you said, okay, here we are. And only now, at the precipice, do I realize what I have set us up for.
Do you realize your mistake? You realize what you have done?
Is it a mistake, Kyle?
I don't know. We'll find out.
So here we go. No fuss, no muss, no beating around the bush. It's episode 100 of the BumbleKast. 100 of your questions answered by me and Kyle. Here we go. Kyle, take us away.
All right. Let's get into standard Q&A. First one comes from Fatoller. How long does it usually take to write an issue?
It's hard to put a solid number on it because there is so much start and stop to the process. You know, you have to put in the springboard that has to be approved by editors. That may have to be revised. That has to be approved by licensors. Then comes the breakdowns. That has to be approved in 2 stages. Then comes the script itself. That has to be approved in 2 stages. And depending on how much revision there is, there could be a lot of back and forth. But I would say from initial pitch of the springboard to final draft, it averages out grand total maybe a week or 2.
Okay. Next question comes from Dan T. Could Bean the Dynamite and other obscure characters potentially be reincorporated into the series, or are they off limits?
Potentially with a big old asterisk on it. I'm pretty sure Bean and most of that obscure cast that I would love to use are considered classic era now. So I'm assuming that they fall under the same umbrella as Mighty and Ray and are classic exclusive. I have not gotten that confirmed because I haven't pursued it just yet because we're doing other stuff right now. But that's what I'm thinking it will probably be.
All right. And the next question comes from Matthew 93636. In the far future, will we be able to see IDW Sonic's multiverse?
Insofar as what the games have established, I would hope so. And to be clear, that's Blaze's universe and the human universe, which I'm pretty sure they're still separate realities and not just different planets and different systems. That might be interesting if we go down that. And then there's the whole thing is if the classic era is the past or an alternate past now, if there's a divergent timeline, I'm not 100% sure. Point is, if we touch on anything that isn't modern Sonic but is game material, it's pretty much the multiverse.
All right. Next one from Marco J. Were you inspired by Game of Thrones to make the Chaos Emerald throne?
No, but I feel like it was inspired by something. There's bound to be some kind of big old mechanical throne of power that I'm going to think about like 2 episodes from now and go, oh yeah, that's what that was. But no. It predates Game of Thrones, at least in my mind.
All right. And the next question comes from Amigo N. I was wondering if it was possible to make Tangle and Whisper from the IDW Sonic series into figures made by Jakks Pacific. Tangle and Whisper are the most beloved and iconic characters in the IDW Sonic series and the Sonic series in general, and it would be great to have figures made of them. They already have keychains, and me and so many other people would like to see figures made of them.
Actually, when I was in California for the last live stream, I managed to, say, so what are the chances of Tangle and Whisper getting any kind of merch of that level? And the answer was kind of a question mark. Not sure. I mean, the pins are kind of a benchmark that's never been reached before by non-game characters. So if you continue to go gaga for that kind of stuff, and if you let the folks at Sega know you want to see that, then they, I am assuming, could, contact Jack Specific and say, hey, there is some demand for this. I mean, for pity's sake, we got a pizza cutter out of them. We got a toaster oven. The official Twitter ran a poll asking about a big body pillow. The fan demand can make things happen. And it would be great if it was less kitschy, goofy stuff and something that I actually really, really want. So for my sake, please politely demand that Sega make action figures of my darling characters so that I may add more stuff to my shelf collection.
And hey, here's another one from Matthew93636. Since you confirmed that Archie Sonic was initially going to have the Metal Virus before IDW picked up the Sonic license, will you show these plans for the original Metal Virus story in Lost Hedgehog Tales, or is it pretty much the same as the current comic?
It would have been very different just by virtue of, very different casts, very different setup to the world, arguably a different kind of tone, I guess. So they would have been very, very different stories, but the Metal Virus for Archie Sonic was not really fleshed out at all. I don't think. No, because it would have been after 300, and I had only really solidly planned up through 300. I had kind of piecemeal notes on where I wanted to go, but it was too early to really be plotting that story out yet. So there may be like a handful of ideas that might be floating around. I posted on Twitter some old scribbled notes that I just happened to come across, and that's pretty much it. It's not like a lost storyline. It's like the concept was there, but it hadn't really been fleshed out at all.
All right, next question comes from Alan S. You said you mentioned it before, but why do you say Vector should have been commander of the Resistance instead of Knuckles? Why is that? I can see why Knuckles might be a figurehead since he's probably the most admired when Sonic isn't around, but why Vector?
Because Knuckles, in terms of just looking at the game material, is a recluse. When he comes down from the island, it's usually only to work alongside Sonic and Tails at best, usually by himself. He's not a people person. He's not a leader of any kind. His interactions with anyone is limited at best. Vector runs the Chaotix Detective Agency. He has experience commanding, to some degree or another, Espio and Charmy. Now, he's not like Patton. He's not like a general or anything. But in terms of which characters have been shown to lead others and be effective at it, goofy as he may be, Vector is a pretty competent detective, and he is able to get his team to get results. He has had the leadership experience. The rest of the cast, not so much.
All right, and our next question comes from Joshless. While the events of the IDW Sonic comic aren't canon to the games, would you say the comics reflect canon in its depiction of each character's personality and ability? For example, could Game Eggman, as he said in the comics, just carpet bomb Sonic if he wanted to, but he doesn't because that wouldn't be personally satisfying to him?
That's a fine line to walk. Especially since some characters are more tightly regulated than others, I would say. I feel like I am given more leeway to be interpretive with Sonic and Eggman, let's say, than Shadow or Gimmerel.
That's weird. I think it would be the other way around.
I don't know. And I try to be true to those characteristics, so I don't like to say that the comics are canon to the games in any capacity, just because the games take precedence, and if something changes on that end, the comics will have to reflect it, not the other way around. So if I'm able to do something in the comics today, that may not be true 10 issues from now, Right. So I try to be true to the game characters while also putting what I think would be a fun spin on them as much as I can.
All right. And the next question is from Jaguar Enthusiast. Were there ever any plans to add some LGBT representation to the Mega Man comic? Would you even have been allowed to if you wanted to?
Honestly, I hadn't approached that thought. Mostly because the main cast, rock, roll, blues. Most of the main robot masters are children and not really fond of the idea of seriously putting them in relationships. Iceman being kind of interested in roll is that kind of cute, kind of puppy love sort of thing. Roll trying to get Rock and Tempo interested in each other was, again, kind of a childish, oh, I like the idea of my OTP without actually putting any real thought into it. And beyond that, I guess it would have to be a gay relationship since it's so many Robot Master men characters.
Yep.
I don't know. It's with classic Mega Man, it would be harder, I think, just because the Robot Masters, as much as they have personalities, they aren't supposed to be sapient. They're not supposed to be truly, fully realized individuals that at their base, they're still machines. Now, if we were to be in the X series, I feel like it'd be a whole lot easier because the Reploids are pretty much right there. And I feel like it would be way easier to conceptualize and do those kinds of pairings. In Classic, it's not impossible.
No.
And if we were to explore the human cast, that'd be plenty of opportunities there. So it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. It's just it didn't really come to mind when plotting out Classic, especially since there isn't a ton of opportunities to do a lot of pairings. I don't know. There's a lot of Robot Masters.
Yeah.
I don't know. Had we gone beyond 4, maybe an opportunity would have arisen as I did more research on the later Robot Masters. Now, whether or not Capcom would have allowed that, I have no idea. We never approached that subject, so I have no idea what their feelings on it would have been then or what it would be now.
All right. And our next question comes from Almiron R. I really like the relationships that happen in the Mario and Sonic series. If the Sonic series made a crossover with Star Fox, what relationships would the characters have?
Oh, that kind of depends on who is allowed to be used in such a crossover. The one gag that would probably not get approved, but I would love to address it, is the Star Fox crew looking at the Sonic characters going, "Where are your pants?" And the Sonic crew looking at them going, "Why are you so overdressed?"
Yeah.
But I can see Slippy and Tails getting along just fine, geeking out over the Arwing tech.
Yep.
I can see Sonic and Fox getting along all right, but he would get overlooked in favor of Falco real fast. The cocky show off.
Yeah.
From there, it really depends on who else would be involved, really, and how you would put that story together.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of, for some reason, what comes to my mind is, Knuckles and Falco hating each other. I don't know why. It seems like they would kind of butt heads, just because they both have those strong personalities.
Yeah. Both have high opinions of themselves, both kind of confrontational. Yeah. I can see that.
Yep. All right, next question comes from Coleslaw Boys. Will we ever see Sonic Mega Drive Overdrive, or is it lost to time?
I'm not going to say never, but don't hold your breath waiting for it.
All right, and our next question comes from Chuze Ning. Sorry. Why is Charmy's boot infected with a metal virus? Wasn't it stated that it can only affect living/organic beings?
The kind of splash damage ability of the Zombots is something I want to address further along, so stay tuned on that.
All right, and next one comes from Chameleon Guy 23. The TSR manual says that Zavok is the former leader of the Deadly Six. Do you know why? Are the other Zeti dead and off limits to the comics?
No. I was actually very surprised when I found out about that little bit of information because they, not to spoil things in the comics, but when asking about usage of the Deadly Six, none of that came up at all. So, shrug emoji. Whatever happened in TSR has been resolved by the time it happens in the books, I guess. Or TSR hasn't happened in the comics yet, I guess, officially. You know what? I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it. I don't know. All right. Our
next question comes from Gomez Croce. You thought to change visual clothes of Amy Rose and every edition comic could bring Amy Boom's outfit next comic edition. Not sure I'd completely understand this. I'm thinking...
I think I follow. I'm pretty sure Amy's Boom look is exclusive to Sonic Boom. So it's off limits to modern Sonic.
It's kind of a shame because I prefer that look.
Yeah, I think that's the best design she's ever had,
Yep.
and I'm kind of sad about that. But, oh well.
All right. Next question comes from Trey Glick. Loving your work so far on My Little Pony's Feats of Friendship. I was wondering if in preparing to write the story, you're also watching the recent Season 9 episodes this year as well. Holy crap, that show's already up to Season 9?
This final season, actually, Season 9's almost done as of this recording, I think.
Okay, wow. How many seasons per year are there? Is there only one? Has it really been 9 years? What, Ian, what am I doing with my life? That my life has just been... It's been 9 years since this thing started? This does not feel right. This isn't...
Yep.
I'm so lost. Anyway, go ahead and answer.
But no, I am way behind on ponies in general. I've not seen... Oh, shoot. I don't think I've seen anything of Season 9, really.
I've not seen anything, so...
Although, to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy because when I wrote Feats of Friendship, or before I wrote Feats of Friendship, I did a deep dive and caught up on a lot of episodes and a lot of wiki lore, so it all kind of runs together for me.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I saw a bit of Season 9 as it started up. Maybe I haven't. I don't know. It's all one giant lump of pony for me. In terms of Season 9 itself affecting Feats of Friendship, I would say no. Feats of Friendship is kind of its own thing.
Alrighty. And our next question comes from Mad Dogger 237. If Archie and IDW were to work something out and say that you could continue from where the Archie continuity left off, would you still do the Metal Virus saga that was supposed to happen in that canon, or would you rework it?
I don't know. It would kind of depend on, in this imaginary scenario where Volume 2 got to just pick up where it left off. It would depend on when that took place in relationship to Season 2 of IDW Sonic. Like, if Season 2 wrapped up and then the Volume 2 series picked up right after it, I'd want to do something different because having two Metal Virus stories back to back would just be tiresome. If there were a few years in between, then I might do Metal Virus just because that's where I was building towards at the time. I don't know. Sega and IDW may not want me to reuse that storyline in that event. I really don't know.
Oh, come on, Ian. It's comic books. You should be able to just reuse stories every couple months and it should be fine. Nobody will notice. It's a completely new readership every few months. That's how it works, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That may be how it worked in 1930-something.
Because surely you're not throwing shade at the entire industry of today.
Not in 2019, no. Anyway, next question comes from Deadly Cuddles. I'm not sure I want those if they're deadly, but we'll see.
There are worse ways to go than cuddles.
I suppose. I'm a bit confused. At the end of IDW Sonic number 8, Amy and Knuckles state that the Master Emerald had been hidden. But in 7, it can be seen glowing from the distance. Plus, Neo seems to have no trouble finding it. How had it been hidden?
That is unfortunately a bit of a hiccup because going into the stories, I had assumed that it was going to be different. And then Sega came in with notes saying, no, this is how it is now. And I said, that's interesting and fascinating. Glad to know that. Too bad that script's already been done and the art's being done for it. So very early in the book, there's going to be some miscommunication here and there, a couple of hiccups. And so it goes. Whoopsie doodle.
All right. Next question comes from Peridot.
Peridot. Come on.
Is it Peridot?
You watch Steven Universe, don't you?
No.
Well, then, okay, you're off the hook. It's Peridot. It's a stone. It's a gemstone.
I am aware of what it is. I just thought it was always Peridot.
No, it's Peridot.
Well, that's a Peridot. I don't know what that means. Is Sunset City based on the same city that the Resistance use as a base from Sonic Forces?
Kind of, sort of. It's just based off of the city motif in that game.
Okay. Next question comes from Sponge Nuts. What was your reaction after seeing the criticism and thoughts of the fans after Sonic IDW issue number 19?
They're not completely wrong. Kind of amused with the discourse that came out of it, because Shadow doesn't act like that. He acts like this. No, he doesn't. He acts like this. No, he doesn't. He acts like this. In this game, he clearly acts like this. Yeah, well, in this game, he clearly acts like this. It's almost like he hasn't had a really consistent characterization since his inception.
What? No! Shadow? Inconsistent? Never. Never in my life would any of the Sonic characters be inconsistently characterized. Never would I believe that.
I wish we could do something closer to what we had in the old days, but that's not where they want his character to be right now, so that's not where he is.
Cool. Anyway, next question comes from Bowlerhat Wearer. What do you think was Gerald Robotnik's requested last meal?
Revenge. Served cold. I don't think Gerald was in the mindset to request anything. He was a babbling nut job. I mean, he basically dictated his entire plan for global revenge in front of his firing squad. He was not in his right mind. But aside from that, fish sticks.
Okay. Sounds good. FairGuy07 asks, will we see more fallout over Sonic's decision to let both Eggman and Metal go free? Shadow already berates him for making that decision. Would love to see Sonic wrestle with making a nearly world-ending mistake after this arc.
All I can say is keep reading. No spoilers.
And our next question comes from Travis H. I have a strange question that popped into my head. Does Sonic really pay taxes on anything?
No, because apparently there's no such thing as money on Sonic's world.
There isn't?
No.
Okay, sure. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense. I'm being sarcastic. How do you... How? Ian, how?
That's just what I'm told.
Okay. And our next question comes from Sticks the Badger. I'm kind of scared. Am I off limits too in the comics? Since Boom is over, Sega doesn't seem to care anymore, so I wouldn't be surprised. Sad face.
Sorry, Sticks. I thought you'd be a shoo-in, but the last two times I pitched you appearing in the book, they were turned down. But I don't think you're like officially off limits. It's weird. I really don't know. I have tried it from a couple of directions and not succeeded, so I don't know. We'll see.
And the next question comes from Excel Hedge. So, Ian, why do you keep tearing Metal Sonic away from his girlfriends? First, you split Shard and Nicole, and then Neo and Breezy. Robots need love, too.
Now, Shard isn't, Metal Sonic. He's just okay, I'm splitting hairs here. It's not my fault, man. My continuities, they keep getting ripped away from me.
Yeah, that didn't help.
I was really gunning more for Espio and Nicole. I thought they would have been kind of neat, but everyone just went gaga over a throwaway line somewhere between Shard and Nicole. And it's like, oh, well, the masses have spoken. I guess I'm steering the ship in that direction now.
Speaking
to be fair, it was well received, and it was kind of fun to write. And the fan art that came out of it was really cute. So who am I to argue?
Speaking of Nicole's love life, next question comes from The Driver's Journey. Are Sally and Nicole in love with each other?
Where we left off in the old series, no, not yet. Nicole would have had feelings for Sally that she was beginning to understand and realize. Sally hadn't begun to see Nicole in that way just yet. We had planted the seeds. We were beginning to water them and see them blossom into something fun, and then the book ended.
All right. And with that, we are at question number 25. Wow. We're cruising. Next question comes from Sonic Fizz 771. The IDW Sonic series takes place 1 month after Sonic Forces. Is the custom character in the IDW series just the wolf character made for the game, or something else?
The buddy character is so mutable. I would say that they exist somewhere in that world, but because they are so ill-defined, we're never going to see them. You know, I mean, yeah, the wolf character was used in the CG promo, but they also were using this bird in some of the promotional stuff. I think there was a cat.
Yeah, there were a few different ones.
We were specifically told to use I think it was a bear in the comic that was part of the social media comics. So I think they're all supposed to be Buddy. And because there are so many possibilities of what Buddy is, it would be a nightmare to pin one idea of, okay, it's that one. That, and I feel like there are some folks who probably did get attached to their avatar character. And if, that character showed up in the comic, but it wasn't their character, I feel like that'd be a little disappointing. And there's no way we can cater to everyone who made an avatar character. So
right.
They're somewhere in the world happily ever after doing their thing. Mazel tov.
Yep, that's what I would think. Next question comes from Jan R. The ARMS graphic novel is still not out yet. Is it even coming? Just destroy my heart now before it slowly and painfully breaks apart crack by crack.
I don't know. I really don't know what the status of that is, because I've written the series and that's as far as I really get involved in it. Keep your eye on Dark Horse's social media channels and, keep knocking on their door, because they're the ones who will have the information, not me.
It seems so weird that it's taken this long, but I don't know. I don't know what the production is like on that. Next one comes from Hyper Shadow, or Hyper Shed. I don't know. There's no O there, so it's Hyper Shed. Did you know that Tundra Man from Mega Man 11 was manufactured at Cossack Robot Labs? If you were to continue writing the comics, could you add him in before his official appearance, like you did with Pharaoh Man and Bright Man?
Oh, absolutely. And is that official? I thought that was just a bit of headcanon I had.
I don't know.
Did I just happen to think of the same thing, or am I confusing my research with all the years past? Whatever. Yeah, if he was a Cossack bot that happened, after 4, then I would love to show him off beforehand, because that would be fun.
Yeah. Next question comes from Tyler Renee M. How big is the IDW/Archie Sonic multiverse? Does it follow the many worlds interpretation / quantum mechanics, or is it something beyond that or its own thing?
Right there, I need to make a distinction. Archie Sonic's multiverse, Volume 1 is very different from Volume 2, which is completely different from IDW Sonic. Never the twain shall meet. It's apples and oranges. No crossover there whatsoever. Not being as well versed in the various multiverse theorems, I wouldn't want to stick a pin in any one of them. And the IDW one is based off of what the games have presented thus far, which, as we've said, is a pretty limited multiverse right now.
All right. Next question comes from Clay A. So Neo Metal Sonic, a robot, was able to go super in the IDW comic, despite Izuka saying only male hedgehogs can go super. First off, how did you convince Sega otherwise? Second, does that mean Omega, who is also a robot, can also theoretically go super?
I based it off of Mecha Sonic going temporarily super out of the final boss fight for Knuckles' campaign in Sonic and Knuckles. That was the extent of my reasoning, and I was not met with any resistance in that regard. So, as far as that goes, Neo Metal Sonic could turn super, and it was cool. And for the rest of my life, I will debate on whether or not I should have left it there, or if going the full route with the Master Overlord was the best option. I don't know. Both were cool. As for, can other robots go super? I don't know. I don't think so. We haven't had a lot of occasions where we've had super levels accessible to robots. So I don't know. Maybe we'll just have to try that one day.
Well, Nicole did it.
No, she got overclocked.
She's a hologram. Oh, okay.
That wasn't a super form, Kyle. That was off limits. She went overclocked.
Oh, okay.
And that was with the red star ring.
Yeah, okay.
Completely different.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That loophole's kind of tight to fit through, but it works.
Yeah, I guess so. If it got into the comic officially, then yeah, I guess so. From Diligent Dodo, if Sonic goes off world, is it still his world, or is it a mute point and he like owns the deed?
I like that idea that, he goes off world and then this giant signpost just rises from the North Pole and flips over to Eggman's face.
It's just a signpost, literally the one from Out of the Games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the answer to the question, Ian?
That's my answer.
Okay.
That I can't think of anything better than that.
Okay. Next question comes from Hedge Blog. I'm really sorry if you've already answered this before, but would you happen to know Infinite's approximate age? Also, is he related to the Jackal Squad or just the same species of jackal? I believe Adam Bryce Thomas stated that it wasn't in the details of the script.
Right. I don't have any of those details myself. I would assume that Infinite would follow the trend of the other Sonic characters and be in that 15 to 20 year range. As per his relationship with Jackal Squad, aside from being their leader, I have no idea if they are family or friends or what. They're just jackals. Basically, with those stories, Sega provided me with the premise. That particular story, they said, this is Infinite's introduction. He is with Jackal Squad. They do this. Eggman does that. That's the story. All I did was really script it. So that's all Sega's thing. I don't know myself.
All right, next question comes from TheRealFTA. Just bought the Zelda Creating a Champion for my wife and saw Ian's name under Fact Checker. Curious as to what exactly this entailed. Also for the Mario Encyclopedia, which I aim to pick up soon. Also, why not make it a hat trick? Any chance of a Sonic one?
As for Sonic one, I don't know. I certainly hope so. That would be lovely. As for Fact Checker, I was given a selection of the book to preview, which was super cool, and basically read through it to make sure all of the localization and the facts within it were accurate. Most of it was, spot on. Some of the factoids were things that I would go back in the game to make sure of, just in terms of something's physical relationship to something else. Characters' relationships. I think there was one mistranslation with one of the families in Hatano Village. I'm like, flag that. At least in the English version, it's implied that these characters are related. But it was really just a walk in the park, just going through the book and going, oh, that's neat. Oh, that's neat. Oh, that's neat. And it's really hard to fact check something that says, this is what an early concept was. What was it? I don't know. I wasn't part of the dev team. I'll just take your word for it. Sure, it looks like an early concept. Yeah, okay, approved.
All right. Next question comes from the OneFuzzyGuy. Is the Solaris from the Archie Sonic comics the same one from Sonic 06? And if so, does Sega approve it?
Insofar as it's the same Sonic as the games and the same Eggman as the games and the same whoever's from whatever. It was the comic version of that character.
And does Sega approve it?
Well, it got published, so yeah.
Okay. Just making sure, Ian. You never know.
I mean, if the question is, Archie Solaris versus Game Solaris, they don't really... We didn't even see Solaris aside from the encyclopedia. It's not like there's any real distinction to be made there.
All right. Next question comes from Darnus the Great. Will you ever return to the slow burn style of storytelling?
Not for Sonic, I don't think. Sonic is, at its essence, a action property. And I feel like I spent so much of the Archie series doing these slow, methodical build-ups for their eventual payoff. And it led to some nice results, but I feel like a lot of that storytelling could have been parsed down. Or maybe we could have gotten to some of the points that I wanted to make, but couldn't because, books ended. Then again, I also got sidelined by various events and tie-ins and whatnot. But I don't know. With IDW Sonic, I want to approach it in a much more fast-paced, action-oriented approach. Maybe I'll switch gears later, but right now I'm focusing more on that idea.
All right, and the next question comes from Double Wizard. Quick question about Whisper. I've noticed that she has 6 canisters for her wisp, but she only has 5 whisks. 5 wisps. Wisps. So will we ever see her with a 6th one?
Possibly, maybe. The wisp that she has with her are very specific for a reason, and you will find that out in Tangle and Whisper number 3, which is due out sometime in October.
Alrighty. Next question comes from Legacy of Dixie. I have a question. Would you ever be open to writing any of the Sonic games? They need some form of energy injected into them after the lethargic Sonic forces, and I think you can do it.
Thank you very much. If Sega ever wanted me to write a game, all they have to do is ask. I would love to, but something to keep in mind here is that even if I were writing a game for Sega, I would probably not have the same kind of creative influence, let's say, as the comics. Games are a much bigger, more complicated thing, so I would be one voice contributing to a greater whole. I assume. Can't really speak from experience yet, now can I?
Next question comes from Nicholas H. How come Sega said that Sonic's planet ain't called Mobius anymore? And that none of the Sonic and Eggman / Robotnik can't have family members anymore?
I don't know, man. That kind of came about around 99 when Sonic Adventure came out and Sega of Japan really took the wheel back from all other divisions of Sega. And Yuji Naka really, really pushed his vision for the series. And that came at the cost of pretty much anything Western-oriented, which, of course, is Mobius and a lot of the ideas of, the cast having extended families. And part of that might be in reaction to, some of the media abusing that leniency. So it can't be too set in stone. I mean, Eggman's got relatives in Gerald and Maria, although they do seem to make a point of not bringing that up. But I don't know. I am not at the top making those decisions.
All right, next question comes from JChance. Will we see Supersonic in Season 2, and will we get a shadow-centered storyline anytime soon? Also, what is Whisper the Wolf's favorite food? Because I know you said strawberries with Tangles.
Not going to spoil anything coming up for Season 2. Sorry, you'll just have to read it. As for Whisper's favorite food, don't take this as set in stone, but pound cake.
Cake. I knew there was something I liked about Whisper, aside from everything else about her.
Light, airy, simple, sweet. It can be decorated with all sorts of things. It's a versatile, nice snack food.
I'm into it. I like it. Better than strawberries. Anyway, the Swordsman 100 asks, speaking of the horrible Two Worlds retcon, their words, not ours, is the Chaos Emeralds more of an Earth human world thing? They seem to be heavily tied to Earth's supernatural stuff, and even the Knuckles tribe, the Mystic Ruins, and Angel Island, which would normally be a Sonic's World type of deal, but it seems to be on Earth instead.
Does it really count as a retcon if it was what they intended from the get-go? I mean, if you look at the old Sonic anime, it had kind of a two-ish world thing going on, and it was apparently Naka's intent from Adventure onward, as was implied with Sonic X, which was based off of that. And
right.
Granted, we never picked up on it as consumers because it was never really illustrated, but I wouldn't call it a retcon, just not a clearly illustrated lore bit, I guess.
You mean something in Sonic being not clearly defined? That would never happen. What are you talking about, Ian? It's perfect. Everything about Sonic is perfect. How dare you?
As for the Chaos Emerald, that is exactly the question I have grappled with a lot, trying to scrutinize and figure some stuff out. The best I can come up with is that the Chaos Emeralds are chaotic by nature. They clearly hop between dimensions willy-nilly. So they are just as prevalent on human world as they are on Sonic's world. Why they seem to show up in the special zone on Sonic world and just out in the open in the human world, I don't know. And I'm sure someone can shoot down that trend with some bit of evidence. So I don't know. They're chaotic emeralds. That's the best I got.
Alrighty. And the next question comes from Putuk22. Hey Ian, how much do I need to pay you to make a Tunicate or Dendrogaster Sonic character?
A what? No, what?
I have no
Hold
idea.
on, I'm going to Google this.
Yeah, I have no clue. Tunicate? Yeah, I'm as lost as you are, actually. Tunicate is like a coral.
Yeah, Tunicate is barely an animal.
Kinda.
That's maybe a badnik, but I don't know if I can flex enough creative muscles to turn that into a walking, talking character.
And a Dendrogaster is also a piece of coral. It's kind of plant-like.
Yeah, I like to think I can think of some fun stuff, but that I believe is just beyond my ability, which is too bad because I would love to be paid for that.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is make like a generic-looking Sonic character and then just put like a Dendrogaster thing on their head. There you go. Perfect. You're done.
Like antlers.
You're done. There you go. You're done.
No. If I am doing this,
you got to do it
right.
right.
22's hard-earned money. I'm going to make it something exceptional. I am not going to do any half measures here, sir. I will do it right, or I won't do it at all. I have my integrity about Sonic OCs, doggone it.
That's right. Next question comes from Nicholas the Mon. Have you read any of the extended universe material, pre-Disney purchase or not? I know that Tracy Yardley was inspired a bit by the IG-8AA when he wrote Pirate Plunder Planet. I'm assuming they're talking about Star Wars extended universe material.
Yeah. And I guess by default, that's kind of the most notable extended universe.
Sure.
I read some of it. I read Shadows of the Empire. I read the original Thrawn trilogy. I think I read Bounty Hunters, or tried to. Man, that was bad for the most part. But most of that is thrown out the window anyway, and I've not read any of the new extended universe. I did read enough and retain enough that I was super hyped when Thrawn showed up in Star Wars Rebels, and I loved their portrayal of him. But that's about it for me. No, wait, that's wrong. I did collect some of the extended universe guides, like guides to planets, guides to machines, guides to species and stuff, and didn't retain a lot of the machine stuff because they read like technical manuals, and that just does not do much for me. The planets were neat enough, but again, that's more like reading kind of like a geology book, which is interesting, but not really fascinating. And then a lot of the extended universe species stuff I really, really didn't like. The biggest thing being I hate when a species is reduced to a character trait. You know, all Hutts are crime lords. Or they're all selfish individuals. No, they're a sentient, sapient species. There should be artisans and dancers. I don't know how that works, but performers and politicians and cooks, and there should be individuals. It shouldn't just be slugmen bad. Both and should not all be spies. Just don't get me started on my rant about how they did some stuff in Star Wars, because my headcanon is better.
It always is. Next question comes from Starmech Xerex. While I know it sort of falls in the will X character appear in the comic bin, I was wondering, with the comic taking inspiration from Sonic Forces, is there the possibility of exploring the fate of Infinite's old Jackal Squad from episode Shadows / the prequel comics? I feel their concept was heavily underutilized, and one could create interesting things by expanding on their fate.
As far as I'm aware, they're dead.
Cool.
Like, I'm pretty sure that the dialogue in the Shadow DLC says that Jackal Squad has been destroyed. Now, whether that's interpreted as Shadow wiped them out or Shadow just so thoroughly kicked their butts that they couldn't do anything, I don't know. But the impression I got was that it was supposed to be they're dead, and that's part of why Infinite has such an axe to grind against Shadow. But I can't say for certain. I am pretty sure that they and Infinite are off limits for the foreseeable future, though.
All right. Our next question comes from Nicholas S. If Neo Metal Sonic assumed the guise of Eggman to ensure that his rule go uninterrupted, why didn't he reveal himself in the guise of Eggman sooner? He could have been waiting to recover the real Eggman, since he could have just handed control back to him at that point. Was it just a convenient plot device to create mystery and intrigue, which it did? Or did he have other motivations, such as being afraid that someone else would find the real Eggman first and call his bluff? Dun, dun, dun.
I'm trying to parse out the question here.
Okay.
Like, Neo Metal Sonic had the disguise for a reason. Why did he not reveal his disguise sooner? Why would he? The only reason why he did was because Sonic had him literally in a corner and had already figured it out.
Yeah.
Like, he knew it wasn't Neo, but he knew it wasn't Eggman. And because Neo has that, underlying Metal Sonic rivalry / hatred for Sonic, he wasn't about to just let it slide. And then once Sonic escaped, then, cat's out of the bag, no reason to keep the facade up. I'm thinking I'm missing the real intent of the question here. So, sorry, Nicholas, if I'm not quite getting at what you want answered.
All right. Well, maybe you can clarify. Let's move on to the next one from Deluna13. As fans, what is your favorite comic trope that rarely shows up in books? Mine is when you see the same conversation in two different characters' book series and they both individually talk about it. Example, character A talks about character B after they leave, and vice versa.
I like that one. It's really tricky to do in monthly comics, though, because it requires a lot of patience from the reader. There was one thing I can immediately springs to mind was in Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. There's this really awkward and off-kilter scene where the X-Men are talking about some plot device that has never been mentioned before. They're reacting really weirdly to each other. They're really acting out of character, and the whole issue felt disjointed and confusing. And then a few issues later, you find out that they've all been networked psychically, and they're having the real meeting in the minds. And then everything that we read last issue was them actually being awkward because they're reacting to stuff that's being thought to one another. And the reveal makes that scene kind of neat, but it took had it been released on time, it would have been 2 or 3 months to get that full experience. And because it was so slow to release, I think it was closer to 6 months. So by the time you get the payoff, it's like, oh, okay, so I've been confused this long for a gag. I mean, if it works better in trade, I suppose, but it's being released monthly, and I think that has to be in mind if you're writing a monthly book.
Right.
As for other tropes, it's really difficult to do, but I love the turn the page for the big splash panel reveal of something. The villain is revealed, or the hero comes back from certain death, or the shocking revelation is made, and the pacing has to be just right. And when you're only working with 20 pages, it can be really tricky, not only to pace it out the way you want to, but to have the pages fall in such a way that it does that reveal like you want. But when it's done right, oh boy, is it fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would agree. All right, next question comes from VolgaDog. When will Bunny Rabbit show up?
She's not going to. At least not for the foreseeable future.
Okay, next question comes from Dakefiva. If Sega and IDW started to interesting into Archie/Mobius universe, would you like to continue and conclude some unclosed arcs, especially pre-reboot universe?
I would love the opportunity to tell the stories I didn't get to tell. I am also not going to get too hung up because that's probably never going to happen. I know that there are wheels turning and there are people talking, and maybe one day something magical will happen, but I'm not going to pin my hopes and dreams on that. What has been is done, and it was great, and I'm really privileged to have been able to do as much as I did. what we have is the present, and it's what we have to work with. So let's focus on moving forward.
Okay, next question is from Frost Hobidon. What are your thoughts on the Mortal Kombat series? Have you played their games back then? If so, what are your thoughts on Mortal Kombat 11?
I never got to play the Mortal Kombat series. It was verboten in my household. Too violent. Not even the censored version. It was on principle, barred from the household. Since then, I've followed up on the series a little bit. I kind of enjoy just how unapologetically wacky it can be.
Absolutely, yes.
Their attempts to get their sprawling, nonsensical canon in order I applaud the effort. I have done similar such things, and I can see all those rough edges, and it's like, you did your best. I can appreciate the effort. I think it's, what is 11 the newest one?
I believe so, yes.
Spoiler alert, I guess if you haven't played it yet, it's been out for a while, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
a little while.
The fact that they introduced the concept of like multiple timelines and literal revisionist history to kind of pave over it all, it's like, you know what? Things happened. Fight. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. I'll accept that. It's fine.
Pretty much, yeah. It works fine for
some
me.
of the characters are fun. It looks really pretty. Some of the brutalities and fatalities are too much for me. I'm a little squeamish on some of the stuff. Some of it is just so over the top. It's like, that's gross. But some of it is just a little too realistic. It's like, oh, I wish I could unsee that. Do I want to finish watching this video? Yeah, all right. In for a penny, in for a pound. But just, I don't know. It's a series that I kind of appreciate from a distance. It'd be fun if I got to mess around in it, but it's not like one of my personal, must-haves.
Yeah. As a kid, I actually hated Mortal Kombat because because I didn't like violent games. I didn't like violence like that. I was the Sonic and Mario kid, so I didn't like the violence. But sort of around, I guess, I was around like 10, 11 years old. Would have been when Mortal Kombat Trilogy came out, and I had a friend that owned it for the N64, and we spent hours playing it, and I grew to appreciate it a lot more by then. So you got to remember, Ian, even as a kid, I didn't like Ninja Turtles because I thought that was too violent.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't like Ninja Turtles until Turtles in Time was introduced to me, and I realized, holy crap, this is amazing. What am I doing wrong with my life that I've been missing out on this?
Kicking people is awesome.
And it took me a while to warm up to Power Rangers even. It's like I didn't necessarily even like that much, but then around the same time Power Rangers was introduced to me, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool too. So I'm kind of into it. So yeah, I was that weird kid who just was like, I don't want to play this game. It's like, it's not Mario and Sonic. It's not fun and cute and cartoony. It's so violent, and yeah, I was that weird kid, but eventually I warmed up to it, and now I freaking love that stuff. So, yeah. I've not played Mortal Kombat 11 yet, but I've played 9 and 10, and they are excellent. I quite enjoy them. They're freaking silly cheesiness, over-the-top violence. I'm all in for it. It don't bother me. So, but yeah, it's kind of silly how I used to be. As a kid, I just, I was in the... I participated in the Blockbuster Video Game World Championships 1 year, and actually it was 2 years. And 1 year we were supposed to play the Judge Dredd game for Sega Genesis. It was before it even came out yet. And I was crying because I didn't want to play it at all because I saw it and it just looked scary. And I didn't want to play it. So they had me play Donkey Kong Country instead.
Nice.
So, but yeah, that was one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, I was a really weird kid who just didn't like those violent, scary games, and it just looked scary to me. But as I got older, I warmed up to it, and now it's freaking great. I love it. But at the time, wasn't into it. All right, next question comes from Mateesah 586. On an unrelated note, would it be fun if the public becomes afraid of gun? 3 reasons on why. City escape, collateral damage from the truck left behind, dry lagoon, animal cruelty, and an army of robots at their disposal. We all remember what led to the Sokovia Accords.
This kind of dances on the line of a suggested plot line, but we'll let this one slide. I don't know. I kind of feel like Gun as a establishment seems to be so large and so well funded. I mean, they had flying air carrier things, for pity's sake, that the public, I feel, is fairly aware of them and, you know, at least accepting of them. I mean, I could say, you know, the games didn't show any kind of fallout from it, but that's not the strongest of platforms to be preaching from, I suppose. I don't know. The kind of military where they think the giant truck is an acceptable means of trying to bring Sonic in. I just feel like that kind of general mentality is kind of shared abroad the entire United Federation, which in itself would be an interesting approach to understanding things. Now, they just blew up the entire Radical Highway. Yeah, well, they had to bring in that kid. It's an 8-year-old fox, but did you see what he's drawing? Was he licensed to pilot that mech? Brenda, did you ask yourself that? You saw all the ads on the highway signs. He's brown. He's clearly orange. That's not my point, Brenda. My point is, Gun keeps us safe.
I really like the idea of, oh man, I like that idea. And I just like the idea of a highway called Radical Highway in real life. I want a highway called Radical Highway. Somebody do that, please.
And I imagine that the giant loop-de-loops are just part of the daily commute.
Of course.
This is Eyeless Guy reporting from Giant Loop number 3. We have major congestion, people falling to their doom. Suggest you take the second byway if you want to get there in time. Remember, drive fast, drive alive.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right, and our next question is question number 50.
Halfway through.
If Starline and Dixon decided to have a homosexual relationship with Starline ditching Eggman, would it last?
Who is Dixon?
I have no idea, but that's what it says.
This is implying that Starline is in a solid relationship with Eggman. They're not romantically inclined. Starline is a fanboy, but Eggman has no romantic bone in his body. I think he's actually purely gelatinous. But
well, yeah.
Who is Dixon?
I have no idea.
Is that what's the name of the armadillo from that 3DS series? That's Dylan. That's Dylan. That's not Dixon.
Character named Dixon in Sonic Boom. A ferret. That's the only thing I can find. He's the former producer of Justin Bieber. Oh boy.
Sorry.
Was that you? Did you write that?
No.
Okay, good.
If I was going to write a joke, it'd be funny. Oh, no, don't put it in there.
Dixon. Yeah, I have no clue. Who is Dixon? That's the only Dixon that seems to exist, maybe?
Sorry, Ferris H. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, Dixon. That's very odd. Anyway. Hey, we're only halfway done. Go check the video description for a link to part 2 of the 100th episode of the BumbleKast.